The baker has shaped tomorrow's bread. The oven is hot. The street outside smells of flour, smoke, oil, and morning dust. Across town, a masonry counter waits with deep jars sunk into its surface, ready for ladles, wine, beans, and impatient customers. So here is the real question. Which object in Pompeii most clearly proves the city expected tomorrow? If Pompeii becomes only a volcano story, the people shrink into spectacle. But routines reveal something sharper. They were between errands. The archaeological part describes thermopolia as places where drinks and hot foods were served. Pompeii had around 80 of these everyday food stops. At the Reggio V Thermopolium, excavators found a decorated counter built for service, with dolia set into masonry for food and drink. The counter does not say panic, it says lunch. It says someone expected traffic, coins, gossip, and another rush when the street filled. The Pompeii Commitment Inventory records multiple carbonized breads from the eruption year, preserved as blackened, fragile evidence of ordinary food culture. Britannica notes that bakeries were found with loaves still in ovens. That detail should stay general, not tied to every surviving loaf. Bread is humble, which is why it hits. No empire here, no marble speech, just breakfast that crossed 2,000 years uneaten. Stiffly. And once you notice the meals, the whole city changes shape. Streets stop being ruins, they become routes. A customer might be buying stew. A porter might be carrying amphorae. A child might be sent home with oil. Pompeii's streets preserved public fountains, shops, houses, workshops, baths, and entertainment buildings, a dense urban fabric rather than a single disaster stage. Now follow the errands outward. Food leads to money. Money leads to customers. Customers lead to neighbors. Neighbors lead to politics. The Naples Museum accounts as more than 2,600 painted electoral texts from Pompeii preserve candidates, offices, supporters, and campaign formulas. The archaeological park calls those programmata a rich source for civic life, filling walls along streets and public-facing buildings. A campaign notice is not nostalgia. It is a request aimed forward. Vote for him. Remember his name. Show up later. Those walls were the social feed of the city. Not glowing, not scrolling, but public, persuasive, messy, and impossible to ignore. Museum interpretation notes the Pompeii's brush-painted inscriptions used red or black paint on public and private buildings across the city. Imagine the painter stepping back, judging spacing, maybe annoyed by dust. The sentence on the wall still needed eyes tomorrow. Pompeian color describes painters abandoning paint pots, mixing bowls and compasses at the house of the painters at work. That unfinished wall painting helped scholars reconstruct Roman fresco technique, layers, pigments, planning marks, and the craft hidden beneath finished beauty. Unfinished paint is different from broken stone. It is a verb. Someone was making, measuring, mixing, correcting, and planning to return. The Reperpar project now studies thousands of fresco fragments from the house of the painters at work and the Scola Armaturum. Even now, Pompeii is still being put back together, not as a puzzle of death, but as a record of work. A major earthquake struck the region in 62 CE, and Britannica notes Pompeii and Herculaneum had not fully recovered by 79 CE. So this was not a perfect city sealed at its peak. It was patched, busy, damaged, ambitious, and still under repair. That matters. The eruption did not interrupt a museum. It interrupted maintenance, elections, meals, debts, repairs, gossip, and private prayers. Only now should we turn toward the mountain. Not as the opening scene, as the force that cut the sentence off. The eruption date is debated. Getty summarizes evidence for the traditional August date and for later autumn possibilities. Britannica describes pumice, ash, roof collapses, pyroclastic surges, heated gas, and later deposits. Preservation was violent, layered, and uneven. The number of people killed at Pompeii is unknown. Many historians estimate about 2,000, but precision would be false comfort. So we should be careful with the old phrase about time stopping. Pompeii was not gently paused. It was buried through catastrophe. But catastrophe is not the only thing preserved. Expectations survive too. That is the evidence we keep touching. Expectation is baked into a loaf, scooped into a counter jar, brushed onto a wall, mixed into a bowl of pigment. The Reggio V counter even preserved food remains and vivid painted decoration, evidence that commerce and display met at the street edge. A counter like that tells you the shopkeeper understood theater. Food needed taste, yes, but it also needed color, placement, invitation. Pompeii was performative in ordinary ways. A house facade performed status, a wall notice performed persuasion, a snack bar performed abundance. Electoral notices named supporters as well as candidates, giving scholars rare glimpses of neighborhood influence, social networks, and civic pressure. That is strangely familiar. Not the offices, not the paint, but the plea. Trust this person. Join this side. Remember us. The more ordinary the clue, the more intimate the city becomes. Pompeii stops being distant. It starts sounding like Monday. Bakeries, mills, and ovens show how daily food production worked inside the city, from grinding grain to selling finished bread. You can almost hear the stone mill turning. Not melodrama, just labor, a body leaning in, repeating emotion until bread existed. Hushed. Then the future closes, not slowly enough for every plan to be cancelled, not neatly enough for every object to explain itself. Britannica emphasizes that deposits buried the city over successive phases, while excavations later revealed buildings, objects, and human remains. This is where storytelling can become dangerous. We want every cup to mean a last sip, every doorway a final escape. But archaeology asks restraint. Some objects were stored, some were moved, some contexts changed during collapse, excavation, or later conservation. So one approach is to say what the evidence shows, then name the feeling honestly. Fact first, interpretation second. The fact is simple. Pompeii contained food ready for service, bread linked to ovens, public campaigns, and unfinished wall work. The feeling is harder. These things do not only say someone died. They say someone had not finished living. Official excavation reports from Reggio V also found the thermopolium within a larger urban context of nearby houses, streets, and daily movement. That block was not waiting to become famous. It was trying to function, feed people, house people, impress people, elect people. And because those functions stop together, Pompeii feels less like a grave of stones than a city caught mid-breath. The official visitor information for Pompeii changes access details over time, a reminder that the site remains active, managed, and continually studied. Even tourism can trick us. We enter through routes, tickets, labels, and famous casts. The ancient city becomes a destination. But Pompeii was not built to be visited. It was built to wake up, argue, eat, repair, trade, and sleep. That may be the scariest part. Not the mountain, the normality, the way tomorrow can feel guaranteed until it is not. The volcano dominates our imagination because it is huge. The low fun settles us because it is small enough to hold. Carbonized bread survives because heat and burial transformed organic food into fragile remains, now cataloged as part of Pompeii's material record. A city is not only its temples and theaters, it is what people leave near the door because they will need it again. Pompeii's public buildings and private houses together reveal class differences, labor systems, domestic religion, entertainment, commerce, and urban planning. The interruption was unequal. Wealth shaped exits, shelter, storage, and options. The poor met disaster with fewer buffers and fewer choices. We cannot recover every name, but we can refuse to make them props for ash cloud spectacle. Pause. The city was interrupted in plural. One person mid-sale, another mid-campaign, another mid-campaign, another mid-repair, another perhaps already fleeing. Scholars still debate season, sequence, and individual contexts using textual evidence, plant remains, coins, weather clues, and inscriptions. That uncertainty does not weaken the story. It makes it human. Real lives rarely leave us perfect endings. The best object, then, may not be one object. It may be the pattern, city life pointing forward everywhere. If this reframed Pompeii for you, a like or subscribe helps us keep telling history through evidence, not just spectacle. Next time you see Pompeii, look first for the unfinished thing, the tool set down, the meal prepared, the notice awaiting readers. Because destruction tells us how the city ended, interruption tells us what the city was still trying to become. Pompeii hits hardest when it stops feeling ancient and starts feeling like a place where everyone was between errands.